hit the subscribe button.
Richard Blake, a British exobiologist, stood amidst the vibrant flora of Xylar, a planet teeming with life unlike any he had ever seen. His mission was to study the unique ecosystems, but today, his focus was abruptly shifted by the arrival of towering, imposing aliens. Before he could react, they escorted him to an enormous arena, brimming with spectators from various species. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. "Welcome to the mating ritual of Xylar," an authoritative voice announced, echoing through the arena. Richard's heart pounded. This was not part of his research mission. His guide, Zara, a knowledgeable and empathetic alien, appeared beside him. "Richard, I'm afraid you've been mistaken for a participant in our annual mating ritual. Refusal is not an option, it would be seen as a grave insult." Richard's mind raced. Participating was not just about survival, it was about respecting the alien culture he was studying. The first challenge was announced, a test of physical strength. Alien warriors, each more formidable than the last, stepped forward. "Good luck," Zara whispered. Richard squared his shoulders and stepped into the arena, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes upon him. The first challenge involved a physical confrontation with Thaler, a towering, muscular alien with a fierce glare. As the fight began, Richard relied on agility and quick thinking, dodging Thaler's powerful blows and using the environment to his advantage. Spotting a weak point, he executed a precise move, sending Thaler crashing to the ground. The crowd erupted in applause. Richard, panting and bruised, felt a surge of adrenaline. He had passed the first test. Zara congratulated him, hinting that the next challenge would test his intellect. As the sun set, Richard prepared for the second challenge, his mind buzzing with anticipation and fear. He knew the real test was yet to come. The following morning, the arena had transformed into a labyrinth of puzzles and traps, designed to test the participants' intellect and problem-solving skills. Richard stood at the entrance, Zara by his side. "This challenge will test your mind," Zara explained. "Use your scientific knowledge and quick thinking." Richard entered the labyrinth, his senses heightened. He encountered a series of puzzles, each more complex than the last. The first puzzle required him to decipher an ancient alien script. Drawing on his linguistic skills, he recognized patterns and solved the puzzle quickly. The next obstacle was a series of interconnected gears and levers. Richard analyzed the mechanism, understanding the principles of physics involved. He manipulated the gears, unlocking the path forward. As he navigated the labyrinth, he encountered other participants. Some sought alliances, while others tried to sabotage him. Richard formed a tentative alliance with Leora, an intelligent and resourceful alien. Together, they tackled the puzzles, combining their strengths to overcome each challenge. Thaler, now his rival, shadowed him, attempting to disrupt his progress. At one point, Thaler triggered a trap, but Richard's quick reflexes saved him and Leora from certain doom. They reached the final puzzle, a complex mathematical equation inscribed on a giant stone tablet. Richard and Leora worked together, their minds in sync. They solved the equation, unlocking the final door. As they stepped through, they were greeted by the roaring crowd. Richard felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing he had proven his intellect. Zara met him at the exit, her eyes filled with admiration. "You have done well, Richard. The final challenge awaits." As the day drew to a close, Richard knew the most difficult test was yet to come. He steeled himself for the final confrontation, knowing that his survival depended on his success. The final challenge took place in a grand coliseum, where the participants faced off in a strategic duel. The objective was to outmaneuver and outthink their opponent, using both physical and mental skills. Richard stood on one side, his heart pounding in his chest. Across from him was Thaler, his fierce rival. The duel began with a test of strategy. Each participant was given a set of pieces representing different strengths and abilities. The goal was to position them in a way that would outflank and defeat the opponent. Richard analyzed the pieces, drawing on his knowledge of strategy games. He placed his pieces carefully, predicting Thaler's moves. The initial phase was tense, with both sides gaining and losing ground. Thaler made a bold move, attempting to corner Richard. Richard countered with a surprise maneuver, turning the tables. The crowd watched in rapt attention as the duel unfolded, each move more daring than the last. Suddenly, Thaler launched a physical attack, hoping to break Richard's concentration. Richard dodged the blow, using his agility to stay one step ahead. He spotted an opening and executed a flawless counterattack, sending Thaler sprawling. The crowd erupted in cheers. Richard felt a surge of triumph, but he knew the duel was far from over. Thaler, enraged by his defeat, resorted to dirty tactics. He unleashed a hidden weapon, a blade coated with a paralyzing venom. Richard narrowly avoided the blade, his reflexes saving him once again. He realized he needed to end the duel quickly. Drawing on his strategic skills, he orchestrated a final, decisive move. With a swift series of actions, Richard outmaneuvered Thaler, forcing him into a corner. Thaler, recognizing his defeat, dropped his weapon. The crowd roared in approval as Richard was declared the victor. Zara rushed to his side, her eyes filled with pride. "You have done it, Richard. You have won the ritual." Richard, exhausted but elated, accepted the accolades. He had proven his worth, not just through strength and intellect, but through resilience and strategy. Richard Blake stood at the entrance of the labyrinth, his eyes scanning the intricate patterns and pathways that stretched out before him. This was no ordinary maze, it was a test of intellect and cunning, designed to challenge even the most brilliant minds. Zara, his alien guide, stood beside him, offering a final piece of advice. "Remember, Richard, this is not just about solving puzzles. It's about understanding our culture and thinking beyond the obvious." Richard nodded, feeling a mix of anticipation and anxiety. He took a deep breath and stepped into the labyrinth, his mind sharpening with each step. The first challenge was a linguistic puzzle. Strange symbols and characters were inscribed on the walls, forming an ancient script. Richard's training as an exobiologist came in handy as he recognized patterns and deciphered the meaning. He quickly rearranged the symbols, unlocking a hidden passageway. Moving forward, Richard encountered a series of mechanical devices. These contraptions required a deep understanding of physics and engineering to operate. He studied the gears and levers, calculating the forces and movements needed. With precise adjustments, he activated the mechanisms, opening the next door. As he navigated the labyrinth, Richard noticed other participants struggling with the challenges. Some looked to him for help, while others viewed him with suspicion. He formed a tentative alliance with Leora, a resourceful alien with sharp analytical skills. Together, they tackled the puzzles, combining their strengths to overcome each obstacle. "You're quite good at this," Leora remarked as they solved a particularly difficult puzzle involving magnetic fields and levitation. "Thanks," Richard replied. "But we still have a long way to go." Their partnership was soon tested when Thaler, Richard's rival, reappeared. Thaler had been a formidable opponent in the physical challenge, and he now sought to sabotage Richard's progress. At one point, Thaler triggered a trap that sent a barrage of energy pulses towards Richard and Leora. "Watch out!" Leora shouted, pulling Richard to safety just in time. They managed to evade the trap, but it was clear that Thaler was determined to see them fail. Richard knew he had to stay vigilant and outsmart Thaler if they were to succeed. The final puzzle of the labyrinth was the most complex. It involved a giant stone tablet covered in mathematical equations and alien symbols. Richard and Leora worked tirelessly, their minds racing against the clock. They deciphered the equations, understanding the underlying principles of alien mathematics and physics. "We're almost there," Richard said, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure. With a final push, they solved the puzzle, unlocking the last door. As they stepped through, the crowd erupted in applause. Richard felt a wave of relief and pride wash over him. They had proven their intellect and earned their place in the next stage of the ritual. Zara met them at the exit, her expression one of genuine admiration. "You've done exceptionally well, Richard. But the final challenge awaits." Richard nodded, understanding the weight of her words. The intellectual challenge had tested his mind and forged new alliances, but he knew the most difficult test was yet to come. As the sun set, Richard prepared for the final confrontation. He knew that the outcome of this ritual would determine not only his fate but also his standing in the eyes of the alien society. With each step, he felt a growing sense of purpose and determination. The next day, Richard and the other remaining participants gathered in the grand arena once more. The final challenge was a strategic duel, designed to test their ability to think several steps ahead. Each participant was given a set of pieces representing different strengths and abilities. The goal was to outmaneuver and outthink their opponent. Richard studied the pieces, drawing on his knowledge of strategy games. He placed his pieces carefully, predicting Thaler's moves. The initial phase was tense, with both sides gaining and losing ground. Thaler made a bold move, attempting to corner Richard. Richard countered with a surprise maneuver, turning the tables. The crowd watched in rapt attention as the duel unfolded, each move more daring than the last. Suddenly, Thaler launched a physical attack, hoping to break Richard's concentration. Richard dodged the blow, using his agility to stay one step ahead. He spotted an opening and executed a flawless counterattack, sending Thaler sprawling. The crowd erupted in cheers. Richard felt a surge of triumph, but he knew the duel was far from over. Thaler, enraged by his defeat, resorted to dirty tactics. He unleashed a hidden weapon, a blade coated with a paralyzing venom. Richard narrowly avoided the blade, his reflexes saving him once again. He realized he needed to end the duel quickly. Drawing on his strategic skills, he orchestrated a final, decisive move. With a swift series of actions, Richard outmaneuvered Thaler, forcing him into a corner. Thaler, recognizing his defeat, dropped his weapon. The crowd roared in approval as Richard was declared the victor. Zara rushed to his side, her eyes filled with pride. "You have done it, Richard. You have won the ritual." Richard, exhausted but elated, accepted the accolades. He had proven his worth, not just through strength and intellect, but through resilience and strategy. Richard Blake stood in the Grand Colosseum, the vast structure filled with alien spectators eager for the final challenge. The tension in the air was unmistakable as Richard faced his formidable opponent, Thaler. This duel would test their tactical skills, blending mental acuity with physical prowess. The challenge began with each participant receiving a set of intricately designed pieces, each representing various strengths and abilities. The objective was to outmaneuver and corner the opponent. Richard's analytical mind went to work, arranging his pieces with careful precision. Thaler, confident and aggressive, made the first move, attempting to trap Richard with a cunning maneuver. Richard observed Thaler's strategy, noting a potential weakness. He countered with a series of calculated moves, gradually gaining the upper hand. The spectators watched in anticipation as the two adversaries engaged in a complex dance of strategy and wit. Thaler, growing frustrated with Richard's resilience, shifted tactics. He launched a sudden physical attack, hoping to disrupt Richard's concentration. Richard's reflexes kicked in, allowing him to evade the assault and maintain his composure. He responded with a swift, strategic counterattack, pushing Thaler back. The duel continued, each move more intense than the last. Richard's scientific background gave him a unique perspective, allowing him to see patterns and possibilities that eluded Thaler. He anticipated Thaler's next move and set a trap, guiding his opponent into a vulnerable position. Thaler, realizing the danger, attempted to break free with brute force. Richard, however, had anticipated this and was ready. With a series of deft maneuvers, he outflanked Thaler, positioning his pieces to secure a decisive victory. The crowd erupted in applause as Richard's strategy paid off. Thaler, recognizing his defeat, dropped his weapon, conceding the duel. Richard felt a surge of triumph, his heart pounding with the exhilaration of victory. Zara rushed to his side, her eyes shining with pride. "You've done it, Richard," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "You've proven your worth in every challenge." Richard nodded, still catching his breath. "It was a close call," he admitted. "Thaler is a formidable opponent." The celebration was short-lived, however. As Richard and Zara made their way out of the arena, the council summoned them for an urgent meeting. The gravity of the situation was evident in their serious expressions. In the council chamber, the elders addressed Richard. "Your victory has disrupted the balance within our society," the head elder explained. "Thaler's faction is agitated, and tensions are rising." Richard listened intently, understanding the significance of his actions. "What can I do to help?" he asked, determined to find a solution. The elders exchanged glances before responding. "We need your assistance in mediating the conflicts and promoting unity. Your unique perspective and skills can help us navigate this difficult time." Richard agreed, seeing this as an opportunity to make a meaningful impact. Over the next several days, he worked tirelessly with Zara and the council, devising new strategies and initiatives to foster cooperation and harmony among the factions. They organized events and challenges that emphasized teamwork and mutual respect, gradually easing the tensions. Thaler, initially resentful, observed Richard's efforts with growing respect. He approached Richard one evening, offering a tentative truce. "I underestimated you, human," Thaler admitted. "You have shown great wisdom and strength." Richard accepted the gesture, recognizing the importance of unity. "We can achieve much more together," he replied, extending a hand in friendship. As Richard's time on Xylar drew to a close, he reflected on the journey. He had faced incredible challenges and emerged stronger, not just in body, but in spirit. His victory in the mating ritual had evolved into a greater triumph, fostering peace and understanding in a once divided society. On the day of his departure, Zara accompanied him to the spaceship. "You have done more than win a ritual, Richard. You have changed our world." Richard smiled, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. "And I have learned so much from all of you," he replied. Richard Blake sat in the grand chamber, the council of Xylar's elders seated in a semicircle before him. The gravity of the situation was apparent, the air filled with an expectant silence. Zara, his steadfast guide and ally, stood beside him, her presence a comforting anchor in this unfamiliar setting. "Your victory in the ritual has brought unforeseen consequences," the head elder began, his voice solemn. "Thaler's faction is displeased, and tensions are rising within our society. We must address this discord before it escalates." Richard listened carefully, his mind racing. He had not anticipated that his success would lead to such turmoil. "How can I help?" he asked, determined to find a solution. The elders conferred among themselves before replying. "We need your unique perspective to mediate and foster unity among the factions. Your experiences and strategies have already proven effective." Over the following days, Richard worked tirelessly with Zara and the council. He participated in countless meetings, his mind constantly engaged in devising ways to bring harmony to the divided society. They organized events that emphasized collaboration and mutual respect, slowly bridging the gap between the factions. One evening, as Richard reviewed plans with Zara, Thaler approached them. His demeanor was no longer hostile but contemplative. "I underestimated you, human," Thaler admitted, his tone respectful. "You have shown great wisdom and strength." Richard accepted the olive branch, seeing it as a crucial step toward peace. "We can achieve much more together," he replied, extending his hand. Thaler clasped Richard's hand firmly. "Agreed. Let us work to restore balance to our society." With Thaler's support, Richard's initiatives gained momentum. The alien society began to see the benefits of unity, the once deep divisions slowly healing. Richard's victory became a symbol of hope and progress, fostering a new era of cooperation. As his time on Xylar neared its end, Richard reflected on his journey. He had faced incredible challenges and emerged not only victorious but as a catalyst for change. His efforts had transformed a once fractured society, leaving a lasting legacy. On the day of his departure, Zara accompanied him to the spaceship. "You have done more than win a ritual, Richard. You have changed our world." Richard smiled, a profound sense of accomplishment filling him. "And I have learned so much from all of you," he replied.